That's terrific. So let me set this up, just for everybody who gets this on demand. Good morning, everybody, and this is IGTV, and with me on camera is Craig Floyd. Craig is the CEO of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund down in Washington, D.C. And earlier this morning, we played once again the video of the virtual museum, and Craig sits front and center on the development of that museum so that everybody across America can come to Washington, D.C. and really learn to appreciate what the law enforcement officer goes through by going through a series of different exhibits and videos and all sorts of interactive activities that you have set up for them down there. And that is something that's terrific, Craig, and I certainly appreciate you being on the program with us today. Can we get into the mid-year report? All right, what's going on there?
Well, we just released our mid-year fatality report for law enforcement in 2011. Unfortunately, not such good news to report, Joe, as we've been talking about over the months preceding that report. The spike in law enforcement fatalities that we saw in 2010 has continued during the first 6 months of 2011. We reported 98 law enforcement officers were killed in the line of duty during the first 6 months of this year. That's nationwide, federal, state, and local officers. And that's about a 14% increase over the same time last year. Now, even more troubling, though, is more than a 30% increase in the number of officers who've been shot and killed during the first half of this year when you compare it to last year at the same time.
You know, Craig, I did notice that in the report that your staff had sent up to me, and I was looking at that and I was saying, my God, firearms are really playing. I mean, I think in previous years we had a lot of vehicle-related incidents where there were, traffic safety issues where any number of errors and mistakes can be made, by motoring public out there. But this increase in firearms, is that coming from any one particular jurisdiction or geography in the country, or is it just is it a scattershot? Is it all over the place?
Well, Florida and Texas led the nation with 11 fatalities each during the first 6 months of this year. So that's certainly frightening to think that many officers could be killed in those two states. Many of those, I think in Florida, it was at least 6 officers who were shot and killed. 2 of those incidents in Florida were multiple death shootings. We call them cluster killings. And what it means is more than one officer was killed in a single shooting incident. Wow. 2 of those officers were killed in Miami-Dade, Florida, serving an arrest warrant. And within a few days of that incident, 2 more officers were shot and killed serving warrants in St. Petersburg, Florida. So clearly Florida has experienced more than their fair share of violence directed at law enforcement this year. Too many fatalities. There was also a cluster killing in this Commonwealth of Virginia involving 2 deputy sheriffs. So those were the cases that perhaps drew the most attention, multiple officer fatalities. But I think what we're seeing is a more brazen, cold-blooded killer on the streets of America today. One police chief in Florida at a meeting I attended recently made a chilling comment. She said, criminals are becoming more comfortable shooting police officers. And when you think about it, that should strike all of us at our core, to think that our officers are being preyed upon by these cold-blooded thugs that they have to confront each and every day. I've often said that officers are our most vulnerable and visible targets of government, of authority, of all that's good in our nation. They walk around in uniforms, drive marked cruisers. They are targets. And if criminals want to prey on them, they know where to find them, and they have all the advantages in that situation.
Yeah, let me ask you another question, Craig, so far as that's concerned. Are we finding a lot of this is coming from the South? In other words, getting into this whole border thing. Are these U.S. citizens shooting other citizens, or do you have a demographic on it? What do you know?
I can't tell you specifically about the illegal alien issue and whether there's any bearing on these numbers there. We'll certainly be looking at that closely once we get more information, more details about all of these cases. The first 6 month fatality report is based on preliminary reports we get, a lot of it from the media as opposed to from the departments themselves. So in many cases, we simply don't know who the assailant was and don't have a profile for them. But clearly, it's criminals, again, having easy access to firearms, and the laws are getting tougher, but not tough enough. I had a meeting earlier this year along with about 30 law enforcement leaders across the country with the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, who is deeply concerned about this rise in violence directed against law enforcement. And one of the themes that seemed to come out of that meeting from the chiefs, the sheriffs, from the Attorney General himself is we've got to get tougher with the worst of the worst criminal element. There is, when you look at it, relatively speaking, a small number of criminals responsible for an abundance of violent crime in this country. Repeat violent offenders are responsible for about 75% of all the violent crime in this country.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you in that demographic or in that profile, are the people who are killing these cops down in Florida or perhaps down in Virginia, are they repeat offenders just coming back because the justice system hasn't really attacked this correctly or hasn't attached the greatest degree of punishment on these people who have a propensity for such violence?
Well, when you look at the cases, again, it is these people, when you look at their rap sheet, we could have identified these people as potential cop killers a long time ago, and they should have been kept behind bars far longer than they were. I'll give you a frightening statistic. I think it's 167 cop killers over the last 10 years were out on parole or probation for some other crime that they had committed when they murdered that police officer or deputy or federal officer. So the bottom line is, these are people that should have been behind bars for longer periods of time. If we had kept them behind bars, they wouldn't have killed those police officers, and an average of about 17 officers a year would be spared if we only had tougher sentencing in this country and enforced those laws.
Yeah, well, it's I know you share with me. It's very, very sad when something like that happens. It's one thing when it's call it a quirk or somebody who perhaps from some mental illness or something like that comes out. It's almost a shared sacrifice on both sides there. But when you have these violent offenders that come out over and over and over again, and we know who they are, and they're mowing our people down, that is very, very sick. What else do we have here? This firearms thing just flew off the page to me. The traffic accidents, I'm glad to see that's decreasing, huh?
Yes, the one piece of good news in our mid-year fatality report, traffic fatalities were down about 17% during the first half of this year. And Joe, you and I have talked about it many times. Traffic-related incidents have been the number one cause of law enforcement fatalities for 13 years in a row. And that bucks historical trends. About 56% of all the officers on our memorial walls were killed by firearms. But traffic-related incidents have taken a much greater toll in recent times. This is the first half of the year, anyway, that we can say that firearms-related fatalities surpass the number of traffic-related fatalities. Bad news, certainly, when it comes to the felonious firearms-related deaths, but good news when it comes to reducing the number of traffic-related fatalities. I'd like to think part of that is the added attention that's been focused on that concern for several years now by our organization, by law enforcement trainers across this country, by policymakers. I think all of the law enforcement leaders in this country and the practitioners are aware of the fact that traffic-related incidents are posing the greatest threat to our officers in recent times. And we've got to do a better job of training our officers in high-speed and dangerous driving conditions. We don't do enough training when it comes to driver safety for officers. We've got to put better safety equipment in the vehicles. But again, the economy has taken its toll. We can't add training hours. We can't build training facilities. We can't put better safety equipment in the cars if we don't have the money to do it. We're slashing the budgets of law enforcement agencies in this country. We're not bolstering them. And as a result, I'm afraid we're putting our officers at risk.
Yeah, there's a lot of budget priorities out there, and you hit it square in the head there. the economy, the economy, the economy, and it is having a negative effect on our guys. Hey, on a side note, I was up on your website today, and I see you've got Clint Eastwood in there as an honorary chairman. Congratulations.
Well, we're very pleased to have someone of his stature. He's an icon, obviously, in our nation, in the world, really. And he's played many law enforcement parts. He's directed many movies that had a strong law enforcement theme and emphasis. I think Clint Eastwood, among many in Hollywood who portray officers, who direct films related to law enforcement, would be the first to tell you that what we see on television and in the movies is not always reality. It's sensationalized, and when an officer is killed, when an officer has to take another human being's life as part of their job, it takes a great toll on the law enforcement community, on the family involved. And Clint is very sensitive to that. And he wanted to help us not only talk about the service and sacrifice of law enforcement in this country, but help us to build our National Law Enforcement Museum that's in the works now, as you know, and as your listeners know. The bottom line is Clint Eastwood is going to create a number of PSAs, public service announcements, that we're going to show to the entire nation over a period of time, hopefully sensitizing people to the level of service and sacrifice that our officers give us, and hopefully generating support, financial and otherwise, for this wonderful campaign to build the first ever National Law Enforcement Museum, so we can tell law enforcement story for the first time.
Yeah, what a great icon, huh? Congratulations with that, and I hope the PSAs and everything else work out. When you get them all done, let us know, and we'll certainly play them up here for you as well. Now, the other thing is you've got a partnership with the 511 Tactical Group.
Yes, 511, excuse me, I apologize. 511 is a wonderful company. They provide tactical apparel and equipment for law enforcement across this country. It's headed up by a wonderful gentleman named Dan Costa, who has great affection and support for law enforcement in this country. And Dan wanted to do something to help us here at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, help us build our National Law Enforcement Museum, but also to commemorate the 10th anniversary of 9/11, which comes up just a month from now, September 11th, obviously 2001, 10 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years already. But the sale of this apparel will allow us to help fund that museum and help honor the 72 officers who died on 9/11, the greatest fatality number in law enforcement history. And the website for that, anyone that might be interested in viewing the merchandise that we're selling along with 511 and hopefully purchase some, is www.511tactical.com/911 tribute. And they'll be able to get all the information about the 511 911 commemorative merchandise sale.
Yeah, we'll put that up on the chat bar later so that it stays up there for the week and people can kind of take a look at that. You've got some other activities coming up in October with the October 16th Law Enforcement Ride and Run, remember?
It's a great event. Most of us, I think, are aware of the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure, where thousands of citizens come out to help raise money and awareness about breast cancer prevention in this country. And we want to do something similar for law enforcement. So we've created a combination road race, if people are so inclined to run or walk rather than ride a bike. And then we have a metric century ride for our bicyclists who might be interested in that, along with some shorter legs of the bicycle ride, 31 miles and 15 miles for those who don't want to do the full metric century, which is 62 miles. Joe, you and I think that might be a little challenge for us. I don't know if you're a bicyclist. I know I'm not. But, the 15 and 31 mile rides might be up our alley.
Maybe
but the
15,
point is,
yeah.
do something. Come out. Support law enforcement if you're a private citizen. If you're a law enforcement officer, this gives us a wonderful opportunity not only to raise money and awareness about the profession, help us raise money to support the efforts here at the Memorial Fund, but interact in a positive way with the citizens that you serve. And this is one of the real goals of this Ride and Run to Remember, is to bring citizens together in a positive way with law enforcement. Remember the statistic we talk about all the time. Fewer than 10% of the nation has any direct contact, positive interaction, I should say, with a law enforcement officer. So we need to create more opportunities where the citizens get to meet these men and women who serve them in law enforcement, realize that they're just like them, they're human beings, and they're wonderful people. And if we can interact more in a positive way, I think there'd be more cooperation, more mutual respect and support between the law enforcement professionals and the citizens they serve.
Well, Craig, thanks for taking time to be with us today. Hope you have a safe and enjoyable rest of the summer. All right, and we'll look forward to catching up with you in September as well. All right, thanks for the update. We certainly appreciate it. We'll put some of it up on the chat as well, and let's hope we have a safer August.
And good. And of course, Joe, we always remember the officers who died this past month in July. 14 officers nationwide killed in the line of duty. And if you'd like more information about any of those officers or the race and the ride to remember, go to our website at www.lawmemorial.org, and you'll get all the information you need.
That's terrific. Thanks, Craig. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
All right, take care now. All right, everybody. So that was Craig Floyd from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, and he does a terrific job at bringing us up to speed of what's going on in that particular area. And you know, quite frankly, it is a very tough job because this is what they're reviewing each and every month. All right, the fatalities in the law enforcement community, and you know, we need to learn more about that as a community as a whole, because you know, quite frankly, you know, I think a lot of people just don't realize what's going on in that area. All right, so we're very, very happy for that. And let me just